Am I live? I think I'm live. Awesome. Hello, Soulfire people. It's been a while. I'm testing out my new webcam light, so hopefully you can see me. I've got it. I'm still not quite sure if I like it with the medium, or I can check. Here, let's try that. I kind of like the cool light on me better. Oh well. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, what I've been up to. About, let's see, January of 2019, if you can remember so far back, I started a journey, well, rather a series of journeys, to move through the chakras um, as individual medicine wheels. So one of the traditions I've been trained in is some of the Mesa or Mesa shamanism of the Andes Mountains. And a lot of that practice is going through the directions of the medicine wheel. And so the directions in that path are, we start in the south in that particular tradition because the south is the direction of healing. It's associated with the mother serpent, the anaconda of the Amazon. And serpents are often in many cultures seen as healing symbols because of the way they shed their skin and renew themselves. And for that reason, it's associated with healing. And so, we start there. We shed our past, just like the snake sheds its skin. Then we move on to the west into Jaguar. And Jaguar teaches us to overcome our fears, overcome death, and, move beyond what it is we're afraid of. Still not great at that, but I try. And then we move to the north. In the north, we have hummingbird. And the hummingbird's an interesting animal because it makes an impossible journey. Like, it shouldn't physically be able to make the migration that it does. It shouldn't really be able to fly, but it does. But in all of that, what that focus is about is, the hummingbird feasts on nectar, the sweetness of flowers, the sweetness of life. And so part of it is, becoming present to the sweetness of life, becoming, unbound by limits. And a lot of those limits are, self-imposed or what we think we are. And so a lot of that medicine has to do with not over-associating with your titles, like you're a son, you're a father, you're a brother, you're an uncle, a cousin, a teacher, what your job is, any sort of thing that you've acquired like that over time, even if you worked on it, that is not you. That is just something that you are doing or are acting in a particular role. And so it gives us a wider perspective. And then we come to the east, and the east is condor if you're in South America, or eagle if you're in North America. And that is stepping into our potential, our becoming. And, the eagle flies high, gets the widest perspective, seeing things from a higher perspective, from a spiritual perspective. Now, in directions, when you call in and create sacred space, as I said, you go to those directions, but there's other directions that you would invoke too. You've got the below, that's the Pachamama, the Earth Mother. That is all the things that we have are from the earth. So we always want to give gratitude and thanks to the Pachamama, the Earth Mother. You have above Creator, or the Pachacama, this, the being of the sky, that masculine sort of side of things. And then you have the within, the sacred within. Within us, we carry a seed of light of the Creator. And so we're part of that, sacred constellation as well. We're all part of that wheel. And so what I've been doing, starting in 2019, January 2019 was I've been going through the medicine wheel on each of the chakras, going through those, going through this, the serpent, the jaguar, the hummingbird, the eagle, then below to the earth mother above, to the upper world emanation of that chakra, and then going within to speak with my personal emanation, my personal, um, I guess, manifestation of that chakra, of that wheel. And it's been a really intense journey. It's been healing, but I always tell people that healing doesn't always feel great when you're doing it. It feels good afterwards, and sometimes that's true of a lot of deep work, particularly when you're delving into trauma. And a lot of our trauma gets stored in these centers. These rule over certain parts of the body, and the body remembers traumatic events. It stores that memory in its cells. And in those areas and on the etheric level, we've got where we have these energy centers, things get trapped, things get stored. And as we move into those, we walk the wheel in those, stuff's going to start to release. And we're going to probably become more aware of where our issues are, or they're going to be like right in our face. And that has been true for me as I've been doing this. So, and I remember as I was getting ready to do this, and I'm talking with my spirit guides and power animals, and they're like, that first chakra is going to take the longest time. And sure enough, it did. It took almost the whole first year. Now I'm already in the heart chakra at the moment. In fact, I only have one direction left, and that's the within journey, which I need to do before Halloween, because I was told that needed to happen before then. So, going from almost a full year and then to a few months on the sacral chakra, and going to like a month or so with the solar plexus chakra, and now just a few weeks for the heart chakra. And then, of course, I'm not done. I still have a few more chakras after. I still have at least these three. And what's interesting is, with my latest journey with the heart chakra is like, this is where my power is. It comes from the heart. So a lot of you'd call them my gifts or abilities, are very heart-centered. And we all have gifts, and the chakra system might be a good way for you to tune into, like, see which one of those or where kind of you're operating from. And so there's some people, some psychics, they're very visual. They come really from this third eye, and I hear all the time people want to open their third eyes, and I think that's great. But having spent almost a year working on my root chakra, I would say get that done first. Save yourself some trouble. A lot of stuff is stored in the root, and your gifts might be there. You might, your spiritual gifts might be very physical in nature. So in those first two chakras, people that have a skill, and can go, you think of great athletes or dancers, they're going to be in those first two chakras. And if you think that dance or, movement is not spiritual, you need to widen your definition of what is spiritual. Because, you could be extraordinarily psychically gifted in those first two chakras. And if you were to go into something like body work or any of the physical healing arts, you would be extraordinarily just powerful and effective. And it doesn't mean that, you're not going to have any other manifestations or psychic phenomena happen in your life. It's just there's places where it's good to focus, to find where your gifts are, and to make sure, hey, maybe you have other gifts that you don't know about. Because you have been stuck on developing one or the other, or that, you've put one kind of gift ahead of the other. And it's really important that, there are different gifts because they're all valuable. They have all something to contribute. And so it's good to work on all levels. And it's good to start from the bottom up, because if you can think of it like a pillar, that base needs to be really strong to hold up the rest of the structure. So I went off on a tangent there. But I just think it's really, this is where my gifts are. Some people, they have it here. So they might be really great at public speaking, or they might be extraordinarily charismatic. I have to really work at that one. But that's my next chakra in the Wheel series. So we'll see how that opens things up. We'll see, what kind of response. One of the things I've noticed is, as I've been working through the chakras individually in these very intensive journey kind of vision quest ways, vision quest is probably not the best term, but more ceremonial. I would say a lot of people work with their chakras meditatively. This is more ceremonial and journey work, which is a little bit different. But I have had very visceral responses. Like, I've had, physical issues pop up while I'm working through them, and then they sort of calm down and smooth out once I've moved through that chakra and done the healing work that I need in concert with that. So that's been really, useful. And it also shows you what's really there. And a lot of times we don't know what we're carrying until something hits one of our triggers. And when I say trigger, I mean in our energy field, we have almost like these little hooks, these little darts. And the way things work is like, negative, positive energy, good, helpful energy comes in. Oh, it activates the nourishing parts. Well, if you've worked on yourself really well and someone's throwing nasty stuff at you, right? If there's none of those little hooks where they're throwing at you, there's nothing for it to latch onto. It doesn't activate anything. It just washes right off. However, all of us come in with ancestral stuff, past life things, and then, stuff that's happened in this lifetime that has, created little sharp or burrs on the edge of our field that will, click into our body or click into our persona, and will get active when we encounter certain energies. So doing this has really it's sort of like activated it as it's like pulling the energy out. So that's the uncomfortable part of it. But it's sort of like if you've got something stuck in your hand, you don't just leave it in your hand, you eventually take it out. Then of course you disinfect, you might need some stitches, put a little neosporin on it. And this is sort of the spiritual equivalent of that. So I've been playing with that. Well, I say playing, I've been working on it because it's not felt like playing. But what's amazing to me is what has been happening in concert with that. So I remember being told, like, when I got, into and started working on the solar plexus chakra, that I was gonna show a lot of transformation in that area. And what coincidentally started at the same time that I was working on that is I started working in my clay studio again. And I don't know if you've followed me on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, but you've probably, if you have, you've seen pictures of pieces in progress. And I hadn't been working in clay since pretty much before my grandmother died in 2018, because my studio was right next to her suite. And so it was really emotional to be down there. But as I started to work in the solar plexus, I started not only to work in the studio, but to actually be able to do things in the studio that I'd wanted to be able to do for a long time and never could quite get the skill there. It would just never work for one reason or another. And right off the bat, things just started to work. Now, that doesn't mean I do things perfectly. I certainly don't. But I've been absolutely floored of what I've been able to do. And it made perfect sense because, when we reach the solar plexus, we're starting to take energy. One of the things that does is take your energy and put it out into the world. And so that's your will. And so creation or creating art is an act of will. And I may have had the vision up here and I had the feeling of what I wanted to create, but I couldn't quite get the will to connect with those lower chakras as well to produce something physical. To give you an analogy of this, if you've ever had trouble with the computer when you're trying to produce something, usually the most trouble is going to be when you try to print something. And why is that? Because we're taking something that is conceptual, that is non-physical, and translating it into the physical realm. So that is a bit more complicated. That takes a bit more energy. That transition process there is very delicate. So naturally, that's where a lot of us will have problems. Same thing with what we're trying to manifest or trying to create in our life or change in our life. We might have the vision great up here. We might even have the feeling, vibration, whatever you want to call it. But if we don't have the energy capacity developed in our lower chakras, if we don't have those balanced and able to safely hold the energy that we need, it's going to be very difficult to bring forward into the world, into a physical reality, a physical shared reality, what we're wanting to create. So, these are just things to think about as you're working with your own energy. There's other things that, might need to do and might need to work on. So, I've talked a lot in a very short bit of time, and I've packed a lot of information in here for you guys. And I hope you find it helpful. And it's just, riffing off of what I've been working on. And this will become part of a book at some point, I swear. And I hope that you will enjoy that book, and I hope that I don't know when it'll be done. I still have to finish all these chakras first and make it through each one. Each one has brought forth its own challenges and its own gifts, its own, like, wow, now that that's cleared up, this is opening up, So we're right now, where we are right now, in this time, in this space, in the world. And if we're in the northern hemisphere, we're also moving into the dark half of the year, and we're feeling that. And I think it's really important to remind ourselves and to recenter regularly. If we don't do that, our energy is going to be run by whatever we're encountering rather than by our intent and by our own center and our own spirit. And, that was something that was reminded to me in my latest journey for heart chakra healing that I did. That, my strength is my heart. My sight comes from my heart. And, I've been, just like everybody else, drawn into the drama of what's going on in the world. Not that what's going on in the world doesn't matter, it does. But I've let other people and other powers control that conversation and control where I am and where my energy is. And it's very difficult to not get drawn in. But that's why we do practice. That's why we do ceremony. That's why we create ritual for ourselves and practices. And I think it's just extraordinarily important for us in this time, in this place that we all find ourselves, that we commit to some sort of practice to recenter ourselves, something to focus on. Where do we want to move from? And I think that's okay if we don't always get there. And that's okay if we fall off the horse. That's okay if we get off center, we get pulled into the drama, pulled into whatever. That's going to happen. because we're human. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to me this week, I can tell you. But if we can just remember where we want to move from, what we're about, and that's where I found the work that I've been doing personally very helpful, because it's reminded me of like who do I want, what am I about? It's Thomas Mooneagle. And so I'm going to ask you, what are you about? What is important to you? What is it that you want to project into the world? Not necessarily what you want to create. What do you want your energy to do? What does you want? What effect do you want to have on the people around you? And move from there as much as possible. And when you find yourself not moving from there, step back, recenter, maybe cleanse, take some time, and do some self-healing work, or work with a practitioner to help get you all bright and shiny again. And then again, start moving from there. And it's really important because of the challenging times we find ourselves in, that we make that decision to move from there. And I'm not making light of how difficult that can be for people right now, because it's difficult for me. But it's really important, because things are serious right now, that we bring our gifts and our light into the world, in whichever shape or form that takes. So I hope you find this helpful and inspiring. If you want to work with me personally, you can find me at thomasmooneagle.com. I also have a YouTube channel, Thomas Mooneagle, and a Tai Chi channel, Mooneagle Tai Chi. And I have a Patreon too. If you want to, become part of my Tai Chi circle, or my sacred circle, or my cosmic circle, you can sense a theme here, right? They're all circles. You can do that. So, all right, until next time, peace and blessings.